I had intended to take a break. Just rest of the day, maybe take a break, do a couple more previews tonight. But I have to address this because the question's been asked and the comments been made that maybe I don't go through numbers and I don't look at where teams are and I just go, these guys are here. Slap it up there. So let's look at Montreal. Now, since of the predictions I've made, I know St. Louis fans aren't happy with being fifth, even though I say they're in the playoffs. And if they got that position, they'd be the 8th seed and they'd be in the same position as Nashville was this past season. Buffalo fans are saying I'm sleeping on them, which is fine. There is no crappy team in the NHL anymore. This is part of what I'm trying to tell people. But let me put Montreal's issues into a nutshell here, as much as I can. I'll show you the math. So Pacioretty gets 35 goals last year. That's probably his max. I can't see him. Maybe he gets 40. So let's just say, for argument's sake, he gets 40. Okay, so Pacioretty gets 40. Radulov's gone. So I put up his totals and crossed him out because he's gone. Now, he got 54 points. Drouin had 53 in his breakout year. The assumption is Drouin's going to hit that next level. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Now, over an 82-game season, Drouin gets 59 points. Galchenyuk gets 59 points. Same level. They've both had struggles at center. And Montreal's counting on Jonathan Drouin to be able to make that transition to center, which in Tampa he had issues with. So there's an expectation here that Drouin is going to just be a star for Montreal, and I can't make that assumption. I can't. Any more than I can, as a Canucks fan, say, oh yeah, no, Horvat's going to get 80 points and he's going to be great, because that would be biased. Paul Byron is right now a legend in Montreal for having the 22 goals and 43 points out of nowhere. The odds of him getting that again are slim because his shooting percentage was over 20%. The odds of his shooting percentage staying that high, low. So either he shoots more or he scores less. That's it. There's no way around it. These 22 goals, yeah, fine, I'll give him a little check mark. Great player. I like him. This is the part I don't understand. I like Paul Byron. For me to state the 22 goals at that shooting percentage is not sustainable. It's just the way math works. The guys with the really high shooting percentage who haven't done it before can fall to earth quickly. They're in the right place at the right time that year. The year after, the odds of that are low. So there's Lankinen down here. He had 28 points. 18 of them are goals. I agree, Lankinen has a lot of potential for upside. But here's the thing. So let's say Drouin pencils in as the number 2 center, and Danault, with his 40 points, is your number 1 center. It is hard for me to think of a team that has a number 1 center that scored 40 points last year. It is hard for me to do the math here and say, okay, well, Shaw will score 20, Gallagher will score at least 20, they'll bounce back. Plekanec is old, but it's fine because Lankinen will score 25. Danault, he had 13, he'll score 20. Byron, he had 22, he'll get 25. Can you see how this starts to get ridiculous? I can't sit here and say, well, these guys are all going to get better, because again, I have to look at what they did this past season and say, okay, as a team, Montreal struggled to score goals. Against the Rangers, that's what did them in. They could not score on Henrik Lundqvist, which of course comes back to, is Hank still that good, or does Montreal have that many issues? Montreal would not have been first in the Metro. Washington would have been first. Pittsburgh would have been second. Columbus would have been third. Montreal would have been fourth. And they would have been basically in a dead heat with the Rangers. I remember down the stretch a lot of people saying Montreal's first, they'd be fifth in the Metro. This entire division is a joke. I believe, and I'm going to tip my hand here, Tampa missed the playoffs by 1 point. They stormed through that second half. They aren't going to be that bad again. Toronto is on the upswing. Toronto has a forward group that is able to score many more goals than this one. Toronto added a 26-goal scorer in Patrick Marleau. Is he going to score 26 in Toronto? No. I think he scores about 20. But they still added a 20-goal scorer for free, whereas Drouin cost them Sergachev. And this is where it gets interesting. So here's Shea Weber. And I got a lot of flack for why isn't Weber in your top 10? Oh, I can show you why Shea Weber wasn't in my top 10. If you really want to get into it. Before the All-Star break, 50 games, 31 points, 10 power play goals. After the All-Star break, 28 games, 11 points, 2 power play goals. Montreal's struggles in the second half of the season were because Shea Weber couldn't keep up. Shea Weber looked awful in some of the Montreal games I watched down the stretch. When I do the season previews, I try to be as impartial and as neutral and in the middle as possible. Weber was garbage for parts of the second half of the season. Weber, 10 points in 9 games, 8 points in 14, so he had 18 points in his first 23 games. At the end of November, I was talking about Weber as Norris Trophy. And how Montreal had so far won the trade. Then December happened. He had 3 points in 14 games. January, he turns it around. 10 points in 14 games. Then he had 11 points in the next 26 games in February and March. April, he played 1 game. No points in that. So 27 games, 11 points. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. And you can say, well, they played him too much. Then they're paying him too much. And they gave up PK Subban, a guy who got better during the season. PK Subban in the playoffs was very good. He made mistakes, and that's always going to be magnified because of who PK is. But when Montreal traded PK Subban for Shea Weber, I defended Montreal in that trade way back when. You guys can look back in the videos and find it. I defended that trade. I can't defend it right now. I can't defend it after the post-break. And you can't guarantee that Shea Weber is this guy in October and not this guy. Then you get into the fact that they don't have depth of scoring on the blue line. This isn't about rosy predictions of what could happen and how their forwards could all come together and this could be a great year. If you believe that, awesome. But part of what I try to do here when I'm doing these videos is I try to be as unbiased as possible. Vancouver is not making the playoffs. I haven't got into Boston yet, but I don't have a flattering view of Boston right now. For this season. I think going forward, I think Boston's in really good shape. I think this season's going to be a rough one for them. I think there's going to be a step down for Boston. They didn't make the playoffs by that much, and I think there's going to be a step down because there's teams stepping up. And I think they're in for a rough year. I think it'll be close. I'm not even saying Montreal's going to miss the playoffs by 10 points. They're going to be garbage. 5th in the division, you're probably one of the last teams eliminated from the playoffs. They could be buyers at the deadline. At the deadline, they could add somebody if they're close. And this whole roster could change as a result. But there's a lot of things right now in Montreal that are troubling. And for me to gloss it over and go, well, Montreal's going to make the playoffs. They should be 3rd. I have to look at their roster currently and say, this is why I think they're better than Toronto or Tampa. I am no Maple Leafs fan. Absolutely not. Nobody laughed harder at Toronto falling on their face against the Bruins years back in that Game 7 than I did. That was one of the funniest moments I've ever had as a hockey fan. But I really believe that Toronto is better off than Montreal. And I can do the math on that too. Okay, I debated about changing into all my Toronto crap, but forget it. So here's where the Leafs are offensively. This is last season's totals. Here's Matthew with 40 goals and 69 points. Even if he stays the same, Matthews has more points than anybody that Montreal can throw out on the ice. Van Riemsdyk, you know, the guy who's getting traded every other week, 29 goals, 62 points, very, very respectable totals. He should be very, very sought after, perhaps by Montreal, because he's a winger that can score a lot of points. And he can put the puck in the net. And he'd be a very nice complement to Pacioretty, who has way too much pressure on him to score. Kadri, he's a rat. I can't stand him, but 32 goals, 61 points. He's finally arrived. Rat or not, and Toronto fans, you know, don't agree with me on it, but Kadri is one of the better two-way forwards in the NHL. William Nylander, you know, that guy nobody talks about, 22 goals and 61 points. Mitch Marner, 19 goals, 61 points. Should have had 20 goals. Missed 5 games with injury. Tyler Bozak, you know, the guy who everybody says sucks. Every time I turn around, people are talking about Bozak like he sucks. And it's like 18 goals, 55 points in a diminished role. You know what? Send him to Vancouver. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Vancouver. I'd like to see more center depth in Vancouver. So send him there. Connor Brown, 20 goals. I don't know if he gets there again. I don't. But these are existing totals. These are things I have to work with. Zach Hyman, 10 goals, 28 points. And people say Matthews dragged him there, Marner dragged him there, whatever. It doesn't. He got the points. Komarov, who had a down season compared to his All-Star season for the really bad Maple Leafs. 14 goals, 32 points. Very respectable for bottom six. And they added Patrick Marleau, who had 27 goals, 46 points. That is 6 20-goal scorers from last year. And I can't see Matthews dropping below 20. I can't see Van Riemsdyk dropping below 20. Kadri, Nylander, and Marleau has to score 20. So that's a minimum of 5 20-goal scorers that I can see without even sitting down and going, wait a minute, I forgot Marner, so that's technically 6. So before I double-check my work, I've already made a mistake in that I'm underestimating the scoring prowess of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it makes me sick a little bit. Because they have a forward group that is the envy of a lot of teams in the NHL right now. Nylander should have been a Canuck. They absolutely should have drafted Nylander. Marner was the steal of that draft as well. Teams will pass on small guys, and when they do, you may have a Marner. Konechny in Philly is another example of a guy they go, he's too small, and it's fine. But you look at their blue line, 43 points for Jake Gardiner, you know, the guy who everybody says sucks. Nikita Zaitsev gets 36 points, and Don Cherry says he sucks. Morgan Rielly, 27 points. You know he's going to get better. Morgan Rielly every year is getting more confident and better with the puck and away from the puck. And Ron Hainsey, who they added as a free agent. So they added by losing nothing. And in net, they've got Anderson, you know, the goalie who sucks. 33 wins, 918 save percentage, despite the fact he had a very, very poor start to the season. And 4 shutouts. You know, Freddie Anderson, the one that when he was traded to Toronto and got signed to a contract, and I said this is a really good move, people are like, are you kidding? He's good because he was behind Anaheim's defense. Stick him behind Toronto's. He won't put up numbers anywhere near as good. These are damn near what he put up in Anaheim. And that's just Toronto. This is without getting into Tampa. This is without getting into Boston. This is without getting into even Buffalo, other teams. The league is very competitive. And a person could say, well, the Leafs will fall back. Maybe. Maybe Bozak will get 22. Maybe they keep Van Riemsdyk till the deadline, and maybe they've got 7 20-goal scorers, and they can trade off Van Riemsdyk and get a top 4 defenseman. Maybe there's a team that's looking for JVR that'll give them a top 4 at the deadline. This Maple Leafs team is going to win a Stanley Cup at this rate. They have all of the pieces they need now that they have Marleau. If Marleau can play like Patrick Marleau in San Jose, they have a shot. Even if he degrades, I can't see him dropping below 20 goals and 35 points. I can't see it. And that's just Toronto. So, you know, it's fine for people to look at these videos I'm making with the previews, and it's true. You know, I'm putting them out there. I feel pressure to get some of them out there because There's fans of certain teams that want to see a preview, and then we can have the debate from there. Remember, I'm doing these previews about 2 months earlier than I did them last year, about 6 weeks earlier. And this way we can have more of a debate like this after my previews are done. I have no problem answering for why I've got teams in certain positions. No problem with that at all. None. Believe me, the Calgary video is going to be tough because there's a lot to like and there's some question marks I have with Calgary that just stick in my brain. And I can't get them out of there. And I've gone back and forth on Calgary. As, you know, I went back and forth on Montreal. But I've had no doubt in my mind from watching them in the playoffs. You watch how Toronto played Washington, you watch how Montreal played the Rangers. Toronto is moving up. They're absolutely moving up. They've got a blue line that's solid, not spectacular. They've got a goaltender, also solid, not spectacular. But my God, the offensive potential that the Maple Leafs have right now. Holy crap. And so as a guy who's got this channel, and I don't exist in this bubble of just my teams, I look at this and I'm just angry that they've done this over a period of, well, let's see. I mean, Nylander was, what, 3 years ago? Marner's 2 years ago. Matthews last season. Bozak, I think, was 4 years ago. Might be 5 even. Bozak's been there for a while. But they've added piece by piece by piece. And they've done it in the right manner and in the right order. Lou Lamoriello has done a fantastic job. And I would put Lou Lamoriello ahead of Mark Bergevin on GM's lists. And I would absolutely put Mike Babcock ahead of Claude Julien in terms of coaches. Claude Julien also coaches a very defensive style of game. Montreal's goal scoring should not improve under Claude Julien because he doesn't coach that way. As soon as Bruce Cassidy took over in Boston, you could tell guys had the reins taken off and they could produce offensively. The Bruins completely changed under Cassidy. Because Julien was play defense, play back, play defense, play back. And Cassidy was like, just go out there and have fun, guys. Let's see what we can do. And they did really well. So, and I'm not projecting Boston to do much better than Montreal. So, that's my explanation. It's the only explanation I'm going to provide for now. As I said, once I've got all of these previews done, then we can have these debates. I don't have a problem with it at all. They're fun. But I absolutely do my homework. I don't have all of these magazines and all of these websites bookmarked that I go through every day to say, I'm just going to throw some crap on the board and see what happens. And then I'm going to count the views. View counts are fun. I'm not going to lie about that. View counts are a lot of fun. And analyzing, getting deeper into the numbers and figuring out what people want. It tells me people want this team. And they want this team a lot. In terms of subscribers, it's all about Toronto. That's been proven time and time and time again. So I don't do this for view count. I do this so I can have a discussion with hockey fans from all around the world regarding 31 NHL teams. And if I ever have a chance where I can work less and do this more, there's two things you're going to notice that are different. One, I'm going to start covering the American Hockey League and junior hockey because I'll have more time. And two, a lot more math going on the board. I just don't have the time. So, this is my video defending why I believe that Montreal is going where they are. And if you're a Toronto fan, you're like, he's got us in the playoffs. Absolutely, I've got you guys in the playoffs. I'd be biased not to have Toronto in the playoffs. Because Toronto has an exciting young core. There's definitely the chance for one or two of these players to have a sophomore patch that's not so great. I'm not going to call it a jinx because I don't believe in it. But the idea that the entire team's going to go in the tank, that would be biased on my part. And I won't do it. So thanks for watching. If you made it to the end, thank you very much for watching the whole darn thing. And I've been very active today because Yvonne's gone to Vancouver. And I've had all kinds of stuff I've wanted to talk to you guys about, and I haven't had time. I've had to squash this into a smaller area than I want to. And so today I have more time, thus more videos. So enjoy. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.